Jar of flour float. People still eat meat and potatoes. Ah! Ooh, this gets me really excited. Okay. So welcome to the first ever episode of Cook and Book. Today we will be making chocolate croissants and we will be talking about the book A Winter's Promise. So just some disclaimers about myself. I am an amateur cook, an amateur baker. I have no professional training. I have never made a croissant in my life. I have never made puff pastry before in my life. So this recipe could end up in total failure. But that's all part of the adventure. Also, I'm starting this at like 9 p.m. at night and I was reading over the recipe and there's so many waiting periods. We're gonna be up a long time and we're not even gonna finish the croissants until tomorrow morning. But it's gonna be a good time. Before we get into making the croissants, I wanna give you guys my initial thoughts on A Winter's Promise. And I'm not gonna lie to you guys, I actually bought this book because I liked the way the cover looked. And that's my only reason. Because I had seen a review of this and I thought to myself that I wouldn't like it. But I was like, oh, that cover is so beautiful. I'm gonna put a picture of the cover up on the screen because it's just the art of it really, really sold me. And I will tell you one of the reasons why I didn't think I was gonna like the book was because it is originally translated from French. And I think somewhere along the line in my life, I must have picked up a bad translated book because I had this impression that a lot of books that were translated from other languages were complicated and hard to read. And I was wrong. Do not have a prejudice about a book because it's translated from a different language. That is dumb. I was dumb and I am better now. So yes, those are my initial thoughts about the book. And that is the reason that I chose chocolate croissants today because croissants are French. Yeah, let's go ahead and start making some croissants. So the recipe today that I'm following is from Tasty. So the first thing we're gonna do is make the dough and I'm gonna put the measurements and ingredients up on the screen. Wait, was I supposed to put butter in here? Yes, I was. And I was supposed to microwave it. Okay, that was close. That was a close one. Don't mind me. I'm just cutting butter with a bread knife. Okay, so now that it's clumpy, I'm gonna turn it out onto my counter. That should be fine. And I'm gonna knead it. Okay, that's as much as I'm gonna knead it. And now I'm gonna cover the dough with plastic wrap and let it sit in the refrigerator for an hour. Oh, this is Louie. Say hi, Louie. Oh my goodness, is it cold outside? While the dough's in the freezer, let's go ahead and jump into this. The first thing we're gonna talk about is the world. This book, when I try to describe it, I just feel like I do a terrible job. This author, I just would like to peek inside her mind. Christelle Dabos, wherever you are, I wanna know how the heck your brain was formed because she creates things that I just could never. And I don't know how other people feel about this, but a lot of times when I'm reading a book, I kind of think like, oh yeah, I could maybe make up a story like this, or like I can predict what's gonna happen. Like, oh yeah, that person's the bad guy, obviously. And a lot of it makes me feel like, well, I could have written that book. So imagine Avatar, the one with blue people. And you know how there was like floating chunks of land around? This is an Earth that has like exploded. There's still the core, but all of the ground layer of the Earth has exploded and is just in chunks floating around the core of the Earth still. And each of these chunks of Earth is called an arc, and people live on it. And the people from each arc have their own like cities, custom cultures, magic. Ooh, this gets me really excited. Okay, I am a huge geography nerd. And when a book has a map in the front of it, I always get really excited. And I study that map. And I'm always so excited when the characters are going to a new spot so I can like find that spot on the map. But I've noticed in a lot of fantasy novels that a character can go clear across a map in a presumably huge country or continent. And when they get there, the people look the same. The people dress the same. People still eat meat and potatoes. The people speak the same language, often without even an accent change. And in a way that's unrealistic. Also, it's hard to be, Lord of the Rings and create an entire language for a group of people that you meet in a book. I get that, and I'm not asking every writer to do that. It is a little unrealistic that when they travel a really far distance, the only change that actually happens is, oh, there's mountains here. Oh, we're by the beach. But everything else is the same. And that is not the case in this. When the character goes to a different arc, she is hit by culture shock, which is so real. The people act different. The people look different. They speak with accents that make them hard to understand. They eat different, and I love the immersiveness that comes with the diversity. Like, it makes me want our main character to go to every single arc so I can learn about every single arc and what it's like there, because that is probably what makes me give the world a 5 out of 5, is just the fact that there is diversity in this huge, crazy world. Now, back to croissants. Butter out of the fridge, and that's not what you want. You want your butter to be cold. I know that. So it's going in the fridge. And it's gonna go in the fridge. It says for an hour, but actually, it's gonna go in for however long it takes for me to talk about the characters of the book. I feel like every time I read a good book, I'm more and more impressed with the capability of writers to make amazing characters. I think in my childhood, I just grew up with really terrible female characters. Not just in books, but in movies. Like, women were just been represented poorly in media for a long time, and I feel like now we are finally starting to be represented in a wonderful light. I feel like if I had read the first 4 chapters or something, I probably would have given the characters a low score, maybe like a 3 out of 5, just because I wasn't in love with any of them. And that being said, the characters were not poorly developed or poorly written by any means. They were just not likable humans, which is funny because I think usually you're introduced to a character which you immediately fall in love with or you find relatable. I think in a lot of like fantasy romance novels, it's generally like really tough, fend for yourself type of woman. That's just like a common trope. That is not Ophelia, our main character. Let's describe Ophelia. She wears glasses. She has like hair that she doesn't brush very often. She doesn't care about her appearance. She wears like baggy clothes and a poorly knit scarf all the time. She like constantly has a cold. So she's like sniffling and sneezing all the time. Definitely in a way she comes across as like the stereotypical nerdy introvert type person. And then Thorn, the male lead of this book, he is introduced as this extremely gruff perfectionist who doesn't talk, and he just comes across as very mean. I don't see how anyone would fall in love with him. And so, yeah, the characters are all like not your average characters and not the most likable. As the book goes on, the characters get developed, and as the characters get developed, you fall in love with them despite their shortcomings. They don't necessarily overcome certain aspects of their personality. At the end of the first book, Ophelia still has a cold all the time, and she still doesn't speak up very loudly. She mumbles when she talks. Nothing in that way has changed about her. She's still Ophelia, but because I've seen what she's gone through and I got a closer look at who she is and her personality, I start to love her. And I think that happens with almost every single character in the book. It happens also with the male lead. It happens with her aunt, who goes with her when she travels to the pole. And at first I was just so annoyed by this aunt. I was like, oh, this lady is just, ugh. Can we just get this character out of the room? I don't want her to be here. The other aunt in the story, Thorne's aunt, also, I hated her with a passion for the majority of the book, just because of lots of decisions that she made and the way she acted towards Ophelia. And again, by the end of the book, I loved her. And I loved Aunt Rosaline. And I love that I am liking them despite their shortcomings. Because that's so real. That's the way it is in real life too. You know, nobody's perfect. The characters of this book are a 5 out of 5 for me. It did take me a little while. So I do recommend, if you're not in love with the characters from the beginning, to just give them a second, because they will grow on you. I swear they will grow on you. And yeah, let's move on to the second part of the croissant. I feel like it hasn't been very long. And it's going back in the fridge. Okay, well, we have 2 more turns. That was our first turn. This is going faster than I feel like it should. Hopefully it works out. But anyway, the next thing we're going to talk about is the magic system. Again, I am stumped at where I ought to start. Let's go back to that first thought that I had of how the heck does Christelle Dabos' brain work? How does she think of this stuff? I feel like when it comes to magic powers, it's generally the same stuff. Someone has super strength. They can fly. They have telekinesis. Telekinesis is so common. Healing powers, that's really common too. Just your basic superpowers that are in every book or in every movie. When magic powers that are entirely new are introduced to me, I like that. And this book did that a lot. Some things less new, but some things very new. And so let's talk about Ophelia's first, because she has multiple things that are really cool. So the family spirit on Anima, where Ophelia is from, has power over objects. And not just in I can make that jar of flour float. It's a lot cooler than that. They're able to put emotion and almost like a personality into an object. So for example, if I rolled out this rolling pin a lot when I was super angry, then I might accidentally animate this rolling pin to have an angry personality, and then the rolling pin would move on its own and flatten things in an angry way. And the scarf that Ophelia wears all the time has been animated by her, and it has the disposition of a cat almost. She pets it and it flicks its the end of its scarf like the end of a cat tail. So that's one of the things that people from this art can do. But also what Ophelia specializes in is reading objects. So when she touches an object, she can go into the minds of everyone who has touched that object before her. So if my mom touched this rolling pin before me, I could touch it, and then I would know exactly how my mom was feeling and what she was thinking at the time that she touched this rolling pin. The other really cool thing Ophelia does, she can teleport through mirrors. If she has looked in a mirror and seen her reflection in it, then she can walk through a mirror and come out in any other mirror that she's seen herself in. And it's just a really cool power. All 3 of those things, I don't think I've read a book where a character has a power like that. And when she goes to the pole, I feel like I'm gonna slow down. I think that's a good place to start. I'm just gonna say that much about the powers. I'm not gonna talk to you about the powers of the people of the pole, because those are really intense and a little scary. I'm gonna leave that for you if you wanna read the book to figure out the rest of the magic powers. But do know that every power almost that is introduced in these books is just so new and so creative. And, you know, a round of applause for Christelle Dabos, because I think she has an amazing brain. And yeah, again, the magic gets a 5 out of 5 for me. Surprise, not surprise. All right, let's do another round of croissant turning. All right, let's talk about the love story. Then we're gonna do our last turn of the night. As you guys can tell, I liked this book. I mean, I've given 5 out of 5 stars on the first 3 categories. So it's obvious that I enjoyed this book. As we get into these last couple things, we're gonna learn about the things we're not 5 out of 5 stars. Starting with the love story. First, I like to rate all of my books, not just with stars, but with chili peppers. Hey, so the video cut out. I now don't have a recording of the love story, which is a bummer. But anyway, that's no big deal. I'm making a voiceover now, and you guys can watch me rolling out dough and folding butter in real time. So yay, just ignore my mouth moving because I'm talking to nobody. Anyway, I was just about to start talking about the chili pepper rating I give this book, and I was gonna tell you guys that I like to give a chili pepper rating on all of my books, because one thing I want to know when I'm looking for a book especially is how spicy it is. It's extremely important to me because some books have no spice and I'm in the mood for some spice, you know? And so I think it's very important to know how much spice is in your book. For this book, however, I am going to give it a rating of 0 chili pepper. I feel weird giving it a rating of 0 chili peppers because I usually read a book like at least with 0.5 chili peppers in it. But yeah, there's really nothing that happens, especially in this first book, in the terms of spiciness. It's gonna be a more chill kind of clean book. So if you're really horny, I don't think this is the book for you. There are a lot of great books out there for you, but if you're just in the mood for like a really great read that's still got some romance in it that isn't spicy, this book still works for you. So yeah, let's talk about this 0 chili peppers romance that the whole first half of the book I was wondering if would even exist. Yes, that's how the first half of the book is. You're like, wait, is there romance in this book? And then you think maybe there is no romance. And I honestly thought that Ophelia was asexual for a portion of the book, because she kind of like says stuff that led me to believe that. The love story is a very side story of this book. It exists in small amounts, and to a degree it reminds me of Pride and Prejudice type love story. And a part of me wanted to like give this book 0 rating for a love story at all, because like I said, I wondered if it was even there. But I think there's still like a tension that forms between the characters that exists and is really nice, and like it makes you wish they would interact more. And just the slightest interactions and the smallest things said or done, you start to get kind of like giddy about it. Like, oh my gosh, I can't believe he said that. And so it's just there to prove that the love story actually does exist. And like I said, it's a bit of a Pride and Prejudice thing. It's definitely not like he's taking her to bed in the 2nd chapter, which I don't really care for those kinds of books anyway. But yes, there is love story, and you just kind of have to wait it out because it's slow burn. So the rating that I give the love story is, drumroll please, 3 out of 5, which some may argue is generous, but I loved it. You know, I love a good slow burn. I love a Mr. Darcy who looks like Thorn. All right, and that's all for the love story. All right, it is the next morning. I'm feeling a little drowsy. I would like to go back to sleep, but we're gonna make some croissants. I hope they turn out good. Okay, so here's the dough from yesterday. It's pretty solid. And you should be able to look in there and see the layers. Oh boy, this is really solid. how it's looking. Cool. Okay, now I put an egg wash on it. All right, so now I have 8 rolled and washed with egg croissants. So I'm gonna throw these in the proving drawer, and it says for 1 to 2 hours. All right, so we ended last night talking about the love story. And now I want to talk about plot. The 5th and final area of my review. The plot is not as amazing as the rest of the book. I actually almost gave up on this book. I started reading it and I got in like 100 pages or something, and the book came to a really slow point. Literally, the characters are kind of at a point where they're sitting around waiting for something exciting to happen, and I lost interest and I put the book down. I said I'll come back to it, but then I started reading another book, and I came back to this book like 3 months later and was like, I should give it another try, because I did really like the world. You know, I liked the magic. I was interested in the arranged marriage, so I should give it another try. And I'm glad I did, because pretty soon after I picked up, the book picked up pace again, and the pace was great for the rest of the book. But there is a point towards the beginning of this book where it gets really slow. And I have recommended this book to a couple of my friends, and they did the same thing. They got to that same part of the story, and they were like, this book is boring, Megan. And I was like, no, it's not. You just have to push through. So if you're reading it, I do recommend pushing through if you feel like it gets boring, because it gets better. It does. So the plot, let's just give a brief summary of it. I've kind of like hinted at what it is. But the plot is our character, Ophelia, and she lives on her home arc, and she works in this museum, and she's like content with life. She's happy the way she is. Her parents have tried to marry her off to a few other people, and she's gotten out of it because she's like, I'm not about that life of being a wife and love. That's not for me. And then the head people in charge of the arc have made an arranged marriage for her, and she can't turn it down, because that'd be like saying no to the president. And so she has been set up with this arranged marriage with this guy from the pole, and she's gonna have to move there. And that's that. And so the beginning of the book is kind of her coping with this fact that she has to give up her comfort and everything she loves to go to this like unknown place. And so that's the basic premise. She goes there. From there, the plot reminds me of Spirited Away, if you've seen that movie, kind of in that she has to join a society almost, and she starts from a very, very low position, but making friends and like learning more about herself is what helps her in this place where it seems like all the odds are against her. Yes, very inspiring. The plot of this book is good. The plot of the next book and the next is even better. So again, I do recommend pushing through. So yeah, the plot for me is a 4 out of 5, because it's good, but there were a few areas that definitely could have been improved upon. So that is the end of my review. So that leaves us in total with what would it be? 3.5 out of 5. 3.5 out of 5. Total ratings with a 0 chili pepper rating out of 5. Yeah, that's the end for the review. Cool. All right, so I let my croissants rise in the oven for an hour and a half. They didn't rise as much as I mean, I don't think they're supposed to rise a lot based on the picture. What I'm concerned about is that they appear to be leaking a little bit of butter, and I don't think that it's supposed to leak butter. The oven's done heating. My croissants have melted a ton of butter, and they have 2 egg washes on, and they're going in the oven for 15 minutes. Okay, it's starting to smell really good. We have 4 minutes on the clock. There's a lot of butter. There is an ocean of butter in the bottom of these pans. That cannot be right. I did something wrong. There's so much butter in the pans. Could this be because I didn't wait the whole hour in between each turn last night? Possibly. Okay, honestly, it doesn't look awful. It looks like a croissant. I see layers on it. When I was taking it off of the pan, the bottom of it stuck. It was like just soggy with butter. Okay, the moment of truth. We're gonna try it. It keeps getting worse and worse. It's not good. It's bad. Maybe I need to bake it longer. I feel like it doesn't matter if I bake it longer. There's no butter left in it. It's bad. It's bad. Okay. Well, the croissants were a failure. Well, the croissants may be bad, but this book is not. I do highly recommend this book. I don't know if I recommend making your own croissants. Now I have 8 bad croissants. All right, well, thank you for coming with me on this journey. It's been fun. It's been disappointing. If you're gonna make croissants, don't do what I did. Whatever it was that I did wrong. And maybe don't follow Tasty's recipe. I don't know, maybe. Sorry, Tasty. All right, thank you. Bye.